Good afternoon to all dignitaries and the participants. I am Dr. Good afternoon to all the dignitaries and the participants. I am Dr. Samuel Sheikh, Assistant Coordinator, Internal Quality Assurance Cell, BN College, Dhubri, Assam. We are here for the international webinar on nanobiotechnology and its medicinal applications, organized by IQAC BN College, Dhubri, Assam, in collaboration with Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, Assam, and Zoological Society of Assam. So I would request Dr. Dhruva Chakravarti sir, Principal BN College, Dhubri, to welcome the participants present here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Samuel. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
So very good afternoon to all the participants. First of all, I would like to welcome all of you to this webinar on nanobiotechnology and its medicinal applications. This webinar has been organized in collaboration with Zoological Society of Assam and Department of Zoology, Guwahati University. It would not have been possible to organize this program without the support of these two organizations, Zoological Society of Assam and Department of Zoology, and particularly the constant support from, without the constant support from Jogen Chandra Kolita sir, the General Secretary of JDSA, and also the HOD of Department of Zoology of Guwahati University. So I thank Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, and JDSA, all the office bearers and members of JDSA, and Professor Jogen Kolita in particular, for their active support in organizing this webinar. I also thank Professor Arun Kharat for agreeing to act as resource person and enlighten all of us in this particular field. I would like to thank Dr. Arpita Roy Chaudhary for agreeing to act as inaugurator of this program. Now a little bit about BN College for those who are not very familiar with this college. So this college was established in 1946 at a place called Dhubri, which is situated in the western part of Assam, bordering West Bengal and Bangladesh. The college, since its inception, has been considered as one of the premier institute of higher education in western part of Assam. At present, the college is offering UG courses in science and arts, computer application, vocational information technology, and postgraduate courses in chemistry and Assamese. We offer UG courses in zoology, botany, and biotechnology. I'm mentioning this because this particular webinar is related to those fields. In addition to this, we offer add-on courses to the students, like courses in beekeeping and their management, economic zoology by the zoology department, mushroom cultivation by botany department, and life in molecular level by biotechnology department. The other add-on courses I am not mentioning are also offered by other departments. The college has been carrying out various projects of Government of India and Government of Assam. Right now we are carrying out the Star College scheme of Government Department of Biotechnology, Government of India, Institutional Innovation Council of Government of India, Unnat Bharat Abhijan of Government of India, in which we have adopted 5 villages, nearby villages, and working on those villages. We also run the Environment and Climate Cell of Government of Assam, ESTEC. So these are some of the activities that are going on in this college, and I hope that this webinar will be helpful for all the teachers and the students of our college, and the other colleges who have already joined in this webinar. And I sincerely thank again to Guwahati University and the Zoology Department of Guwahati University and ZSA. And I again would like to mention the main architect of this webinar, Professor Jogen Kalita, for his active support. So thanking you all, I would like to conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your welcome address. Now I would request Mrs. Bithika Nandi, Assistant Professor, Department of Pol Science, BN College, Dhubri, to introduce our respected inaugurator of this auspicious event. Over to you, Bithika Madam.
Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
madam,
yes.
you are audible.
So, good evening, respected dignitaries and all the participants of today's webinar. It gives me immense the inaugurator of today's webinar, Dr. Orpita Roy Chaudhary. Dr. Chaudhary is currently working as a staff scientist in Integrated Research Institute Integrated Research Institute for the Sciences, Berlin, and co-founder and managing partner, Data Analysis Tools, Germany. About her qualification, Dr. Orpita Roy Chaudhary is MSc in Biotechnology. She did her PhD in Biophysics and Nanotechnology from Heinrich-Heine University, Germany. She has authored several research and popular science articles, blogs, on multiple best poster and oral presentation awards at conferences of international repute. With this brief introduction, I welcome Dr. Chaudhary to this webinar. Over to you, Samuel, sir.
Thank you, madam. So, proceeding towards the inauguration, I would request Dr. Orpita Roy Chaudhary, our respected inaugurator, to inaugurate today's webinar. The floor is yours, madam.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you so much, Dr. Nandi, for the kind introduction. So good evening or good afternoon, everyone. Dear Professor Karat, today's resource person, distinguished members of the Zoological Society of Assam, the organizers from BN College, Dhubri, as well as all participants who are attending today's webinar. I'm pleased to have the honor of inaugurating today's webinar on nanotechnology and its medicinal application. And I would like to thank ZSA and especially Professor Jogen Kalita, sir, for this wonderful opportunity of giving me this chance to inaugurate today's webinar. I would like to congratulate ZSA for the wonderful work they have been doing over a good period of time, providing exposure to the students on various topics. And I'm sure the students of the state and beyond as well are getting extremely benefited by this endeavor. I personally feel immensely privileged to stay connected to my state from so far away with the academic activities of the state also through ZSA. I was born in a small village called Pailapul, which is around 30 kilometers away from Silchar town of Kachar district. And since the time I was a kid, the smaller and smarter components behind this complex human machinery had gotten me immensely fascinated. And to pursue this curiosity, I opted for a PhD in structural biology and nanomedicine. And I have since been working on various projects involving protein folding in therapeutics, drug delivery, designing nano devices, etc. And it has always proven time and again how the prophetic saying by Richard Feynman, I'm sure most of us or all of us are aware of the saying where it is like there says, there is plenty at the bottom, holds true even today. And there is yet so much to understand and explore. I wouldn't go to the technical details of the topic as well, because we all are really excitingly looking forward to the enlightening talk by the resource person today. However, I would instead like to mention that little anecdote of our life. For me, there was once a very interesting French animation where it was amazing how the creators imagined the human body as a construction where tiny cars floated through human veins and they would grab cranes and work on teeth and bacteria as tiny monsters try to attack innocently screaming lady cells, and while the white blood cells would come to defend the body as like really trained soldiers. Somehow similar was a movie of 1966 called Fantastic Voyage, which explored shrinking a medical team to a microscopic size in order to get them to the body of a scientist and save the renowned scientist's life. So the agronauts would travel through the bloodstream to the brain where the crew uses a laser gun to blow away the blood clot. So, I mean, those are really interesting stuffs, but we see, I mean, can you imagine this would happen in real life beyond the science fiction? How about a nanometer size cage that lets insulin out but doesn't really get attacked by our immune system? How about a nanorobot delivering dopamine directly to the brainstem for treating neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, etc.? And how about injecting a chemotherapy into cancer cells while keeping healthy cells untouched? In such a scenario, the word symptoms would be completely eradicated, rather the negative symptoms of a treatment would be eradicated from our medical dictionaries. But it really sounds like an idea out of the science fiction novels. If you think nanorobots and engineered nanoparticles are only a part of the world created by Jules Verne or by Greg Egan in his novel Diaspora, no, that is not really true. I'm sure you might have already heard the Nobel Prize winner in chemistry of 2016, who discovered molecular machines. So they were a trio of scientists, Jean-Pierre Sauvage, Sir Fraser Stoddart, and Bernard L. Feringa. So they very simply, for having developed molecular machines to work in controllable environments. And we have been extremely lucky to collaborate with Sir Fraser Stoddart from the Northwestern University in Chicago, where they synthesize and build these nano machines, molecular machines, which can go and travel along an axis and can deliver, potentially deliver drug delivery. So we are studying also the nanomechanical properties of such molecules. Creating drugs that are directly, that could potentially attack cancer cells without damaging other tissues has already been proven to be safe for treating cervical cancer. Swedish researchers recently have developed a technique that uses magnetically controlled nanoparticles to force tumor cells to self-destruct themselves without harming the surrounding tissue by radiation. It is primarily intended for cancer treatment, but it does have a very high potential to treat other diseases, including type 1 diabetes. Another example of recent research in nanotechnology in medicine would be recently ETH Zurich and Technion researchers combined in a collaborative project. They have developed elastic nano swimmers. So these are nanowares that can move through biological fluid environments at almost 15 micrometer per second. So these nano swimmers might be programmed to deliver drugs and magnetically be controlled to swim in our bloodstream to target the cancer cells. I mean, the list goes endless. I would just say one more by the Johns Hopkins University, which has developed robots only 1 millimeter across that can take biopsies inside the colon. So you just have to ingest the little robots as a swallow them as a tiny capsule, and the robotic biopsy comes out with it. How cool is that? Or is it not, right? So the engineers are really working on having these robots perform surgery in the colon too. Maybe in near future, we would see something similar as well, having become a reality. So we are living at the dawn of this nanomedicine age. I believe that the nanoparticles and nano devices will soon operate as precise drug delivery systems, cancer treatment tools, or tiny surgeons as even. So there are many other such exciting examples of nanotechnology in medicine, some being nanoparticles like micelles, liposomes, dendrimers, carbon nanotubes, quantum dots, which are used in clinical studies. Apart from the diagnostic imaging techniques, which is my favorite because I work in the field of high resolution imaging, where we can see the really atomic structure go beyond angstrom resolution and see how the atoms are arranged and correlate structure function relationships of them. So while all these properties until now that I guess said are really glorifying and tells us the unprecedented benefits of nanotechnology in medicine and beyond as well. But they also there is a risk of environmental proliferation and unintended toxicity. So while we are all excited about the research, amazing, but I would say we all as a scientific community, as responsible scientists, should also be careful and therefore an evidence-based approach of balancing R&D activities with the health and environmental safety is also equally necessary for sustainable development of nanotechnology. So with this, I would really like to conclude, and I'm looking forward to today hearing our esteemed resource person. I wish JEDESE a very best in all your deliberations. And on that note, I declare the webinar on nanotechnology and its medicinal application open. Thank you.
Thank you very much, madam, for your valuable speech. Now I request Madam Bitika Nandi to introduce our honorable resource person of this webinar. Over to you, Madam Bitika.
Thank you, sir. Respected dignitaries and all the participants of today's webinar, it gives me privilege to introduce the resource person of today's webinar, the most prestigious Professor Arun S. Kharab. Professor Kharab is currently working as Professor of Microbiology in School of Life Sciences, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi. He is also working as a Director of Internal Quality Assurance Cell, JNU, and a research supervisor. Professor Kharab did his MSc in microbiology from Shivaji University, Kolhapur. He obtained his PhD degree from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Sir is having more than 20 years of work experience as a teacher and as a researcher. Professor Kharab has received a number of awards and fellowships like a Rockefeller Fellowship, French Ministry of Science, CNRS Fellowship, the James D. Watson Fellowship, etc. He has published a number of research articles in different research journals, magazines, etc. We are fortunate to have Sir as our resource person. And with this short introduction, I welcome Professor Kharab, Sir, to this webinar. Over to you, Samuel, sir.
Thank you, Madam. Now, I would request our esteemed resource person, Professor Arun S. Kharab, sir, to start his speech. And before that, just a small announcement for the participants that there will be an interactive session at the end of the speech of the resource person. So participants can put their queries in the chat box, which will be addressed in the interactive session. So Professor Kharab, sir, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you very much, Samuel, sir. Distinguished GSI office bearer, then Professor Jogan Chandra Kalita, who is head of the Department Zoology at Guwahati University, Assam. Then Principal of B.N. Dugri College, who has given an overview of the college activity and the very purpose. Dr. Nandi, who kindly introduced, and the inaugurator, who has indeed took around 360-degree of nanotechnology and it's a medical part. I personally believe, like, I'm not going to go into that details because the more the details I go, the more boring it will be for the lot of participants. So because I have been teaching for the last 28 years, and I know bringing all the angles of any technology would be too much for some, and it's always a challenge. I'll try to touch very briefly in the area, even in the medical application, and then introduce what we do in this field. If I can share the presentation, let me. Let's see that. Is it visible?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good. So it's not any more new field, but it's still exciting. And as far as I understand, it is a long way to go before actually it can be used in a greater application. Right now, number of applications of nanobiotechnology in the various fields are with evidence-based, but largely at a laboratory level and at the field-based level. Still, we have challenges also at the same time, in addition to its beneficial aspect that we do. But still, it's a promising field. It's a very promising, and it has both, as every technology has like a blessings as well as some sort of limitations. So with that, I think I'll come to the point. So nano biotechnology and the medical applications we will come. Basically, it's the concept that was laid back in 1959 or current, you can consider 1960. It's purely 61-year-old or 62-year-old concept. So you can understand 6 decades of research has gone into establishing and introducing the term nanobiotechnology or nanotechnology with its numerous applications in the field of various different scientific area. And now we are talking about specified applications, different type of nanomaterials, different type of options, deliveries, and their impact. And now we are very close to application though, but now we are in a negotiation between the prospectus versus the consequences. The term was coined by Professor Norio Taniguchi back in Tokyo and in 1981, with the development of scanning tunneling microscope that could see individual atoms, modern nanotechnology was born, and it has always been tagged with the size, such as the materials or material science aspect, the materials which are ranging in the size of 1 nanometer to 100 nanometer falls into the nano science or nanomaterial that is called. The actual machine could be 0.5 to 3 micron. And very interesting thing, were there natural nano materials available? As a microbiology person, I would personally believe that the smallest motor that exists is in microorganisms, particularly the bacteria which are propelling with the flagella for their locomotion. And the flagellar apparatus, the flagellar motor that is embedded in 4 rings, is a beautiful architecture and an excellent example of nanomaterial which is naturally present. You must have heard a large number of nano complexes with inorganic metal ions, and you know very well their physical properties as a metal and the physical property as a nanoparticle do not really match. With reference to the sizes, with reference to everything, it's not just their mode of action or their activities are a differential aspect, but also their physical properties do change with the size. So in other words, size does matter. Now, biocompatibility, passive diamond coating, because of its inert nature, because it's very important that you need to have the coating of inert compounds so that there is no additional material that contribute in the process of any kind of reactions, which is also not attacked by the immune system. Otherwise, you will have a very different complex reactions taking place, and it will be very difficult to discern exactly what is happening. Now, powering, metabolize local glucose, oxygen for energy, clinical environment, acoustic energy. These are the powering aspects which are linked with the nano materials. Communication. It's a broadcast acoustic type messages, devices which are similar to an ultrasound probe, acoustic sensors, or internal communication network. Now, let's jump into the direct health system. And state of health can be established, recognize the differences between the healthy tissue and the diseased tissues, and rectify those differences. Because these nanomaterials, which are by far very tiny in the sizes, the effective delivery and targeted delivery will be able to differentiate, as already Roy Choudhury, Dr. Roy Choudhury mentioned that the point that in the case of cancer cell, a specific mode of action, the nanomaterial will be targeting not to the healthy or the normal cell, but to the transformed cells. Similarly, here also, healthy tissue versus the tissue that has some anomaly or some disease or some kind of aberration, that would be either identified as a demonstration detection methodology or diagnosis, or it could rectify, depends on the nanoparticle is a solitarily entering, or nanoparticle is also doped with some another molecule, because nanoparticles will also help the delivery of material to a target specific. It will also help the immune system. The body's immune system is limited in its capabilities, but with the help of nanomaterial, if you are able to targetedly introduce the immune supportive immunomodulators, then you would be able to help utilize immunity for a very specific cause, very specific reason, and get help into a shorter span of time. Medical nanomachines, that's one, which could program to respond to anything which are encountered by the world of medicine. Now, aging is treated as a disease these days. It's very interesting. Aging is a new phenomena that has been accepted by the society. However, aging begins even before the birth. Even the intrauterine growth starts during blastulation, gastrulation itself. We define aging, but that aging is treated as a positive side, and as it comes to certain adult age, after that point, aging is treated as a condition. So there could be, initially the cells are developing, lineages or developing, functions are going to be defined, but in the case of disease of aging, basically the molecular machinery that was functioning, now it becomes or start to become suboptimal in its function, and misarranged structures or the suboptimal enzymatic activities at certain points will bring the metabolic flux to be diverted in a different way, and that imparts the condition called aging, which is a very identified with the certain lot of phenotype markers, either on the skin part, your breathing pattern, your blood circulation, and to believe that large number of genetic diseases are also tagged with your aging aspect. So nanomedicine, basically it is a new, enticing, and very exciting interdisciplinary field. Even a simple project needs contribution from the various different fields of science and non-science background. These days, decentralized approach, which was very popular in last 25, 30 years before, or at the onset of 21st century, everything was decentralized. But now in science, particularly, even if you could note in India, IITs do have now humanities and social science departments, because technology is for the humans, technology is for the society, and you can't escape away from that. So the integrative approach is very appreciated these days, and any technological progress cannot be done solitarily by one particular field. So here it requires physics, engineering, material scientists, biologists, and the end users who are involved in the medical practice. For an example, orthopedic surgeon. But doesn't mean it is limited to the orthopedic surgeon. It could be an oncologist, it could be a cardiologist, it could be a nephrologist, it could be a pediatrics, it could be a neurologist, whatever you can name. A different end users can be numerous, or even in future countless. Molecular nanotechnology and manufacturing are the key enabling technology. Analyzing and repairing human body just as we repair any other machine is very important. As I was mentioning, aging. For example, we often talk the antioxidants are the prohibitors of the aging phenomenon. So eventually everybody is rushing towards antioxidants, and how to, rather than taking externally, how to modify your own metabolic flux in a way that antioxidant level can be boosted either through the dietary intake or through the internal metabolic mechanisms, so that if something is going affected, then the same particularly target-oriented redox oxygen system, for example, can be repaired so that the aging can be delayed. It is inevitable though, but it can be delayed. And thus, the analysis is very important before repairing, and the repairing of the human body aspect in order to ensure the good health to the human, where the nano medicine or the nanomaterial, bio-nano medical devices could be of a very promising applications. Miniaturizing the surgery. Now, this is also very essential. Tissue reconstruction, as even Roy Chaudhary said, and I also say that the damaged tissue, which could be identified or rectified with the use of orthopedic surgeon, particularly with the use of nanomedicines, which will help regeneration of the tissues and recovery of certain huge orthopedic aspect of the injuries that would otherwise take a longer time and also have some severe disabilities, and that disabilities probably with the applications of nanomedicine be reduced at the maximum possible. Eliminating most of the common diseases, all the medical pain and suffering, that is one of the biggest dream that every human being wants to have. Because even if you have a simple cold, you would think that why on the face of earth I am suffering with a simple or even cold. Anything could be possible, I can take it, but not the cold. Tomorrow, if you have a cough, you will feel that I would be taking anything, but not the cough. So all the common illnesses also, if we can eliminate, and people are looking towards nanomedicine as a very promising technology or the solution towards the same. Respirocytes, a proposed nanorobot, which is artificial red blood cell that would enhance the oxygen level and HB level of your blood cell and helps you better respire. And that's where the nanomedicines can be used. Of the order of 1 micron, spherical nanorobot made of 18 billion atoms. Can we imagine? It is going to be much smaller than the scale of nano as an individual item. And in that case, A pressure tank which can be pumped up to 9 billion oxygen and carbon dioxide molecules. By the virtue of its pressure sensor, it releases oxygen and carbon dioxide. So the oxygen will be absorbed by the RBCs, particularly the converting the carboxyhemoglobin into the oxyhemoglobin, and that helps a better respiration. The bottom line is that it mimics the action of hemoglobin-filled RBCs and can deliver 236 times much more oxygen per unit volume than a natural RBC can do. So Respirocyte, a nano robot, has improved so much, and you can just imagine the COVID pneumonia and during the COVID respiratory severe illness upon the cytokine storm is inevitable to enter into the respiratory complications. And at this time point, we don't really have a huge applicable possibility for Respirocyte. But imagine if this device is made friendly and functioning, then a lot of deaths can also be avoided. This would help also to treat the immune anemia. And as you know, the country like India, especially the female, almost 40% females suffer with anemia. Without their knowledge, invariably, even the healthy female don't have, 60% don't have really good amount of anemia. They are lower borderline normal. And 40% certainly are below the even a normal lower line. And that is attributed to the lifestyle, that is attributed to the malnutrition, that is also attributed to their metabolism. A number of factors are there, and aging can also be in some. But then if you can use Respirocyte, possibly conversion of carboxyhemoglobin to oxyhemoglobin would certainly help reduce the condition or the consequences of anemia. Transfusion and the perfusions of the blood, that could also be fetal and child-related disorders. That is very, very important because the during the growth, lot of IUGR, particularly if you have heard intrauterine growth retardation, it's basically due to two reasons. One reason, definitely the quality of nutrient that are passed from the mother. And the second, pregnancy-induced hypertension is a medical condition, which these days you don't have to bring it in. It comes just like that because we live a very much stressful life, whether in the rural area, suburban or the urban area. And that definitely reduces the level of oxygen through the blood to the fetus. And that can also be rectified with the Respirocyte. So this is the example how it enters and how it helps the molecular structure shaping of the RBCs, and thereby it improves the function of RBCs by providing it hundreds of times efficient oxygen and hemoglobin functionality there. Currently, the research are also going in a very different dynamic areas, making tiny plastic particles to deliver the life-saving medicines. Now, life-saving medicines is a very important aspect, particularly the patients who are with diabetes, patients who are with CVD, patients who are with triglyceridemia, patients who are with cholesterol, patients who are with nephrological disorders, patients who are suffering with chronic lung disorders. They are tend to take a longer time medicines in some cases until the death. That's one category. Second category is acute admissions into the hospital, and in that case, like dopamine already mentioned by Dr. Roy Choudhury, similar. Their delivery in timely manner at a targeted site is a major concern sometime to save the life, and therefore the many medications that requires the life-saving medications to be reached. So the tiny plastic particles made with these nano devices or nanomaterial is a current research, one of the research. Many medications such as the therapeutic DNA, insulin, human growth hormone must enter to the body through the painful injections. But Johns Hopkins, which is in USA, is seeking to deliver the same treatment without the injectability. You must even have heard now, there is one vaccine coming, which is like a shotgun type of vaccine. So there is no injection for the COVID also. Meaning 3 shots, but that's with the high pressure. So sort of that you can do it with the advanced technology, and that will allow the targeted entry of nucleic acid, insulin, or the hormone, which are the peptide or the protein in nature. Justin Hens, an assistant professor at the Department of Chemical and Biomolecular Engineering, wants to pack the drug into the microscopic plastic spheres, which can be inhaled. So this is again another nanomaterial device one can construct with thousands or millions of the nanomolecule, which are doped with the nanomaterial, the life-saving medicine, which will reach to the target either by inhalation or, as I said, shotgun, or by without the staying methodology. A magnet is also there, another way. And this would be helping because of their smaller size in the under micron sizes, it would be entering to the targeted location. New type of porous polymer particles which are capable of releasing drugs into the environment, resembling the deep lungs. So these are the things. Nanotechnology, which is applied in medically new breakthrough, advanced biomedical research tools, labels to the experiments, study the DNA and its component genes. Diagnostic tests can also be done with the nanomedicines. In bone implants, that is orthopedic, one of the orthopedic applications. And as I was talking in the previous slide, it could be a cardiovascular application. It could be an internal medicine application. It could be a obstetrical applications. It could be a pediatric application also. Now, the systems that deliver drugs to the specific site. So you need to have not just a drug, but the smart drug. So in its chemical formulation, it has a mode of action. But a smart drug is not just going to have its action, but its entry and a targeted entry would ensure that the efficacy would be increased a lot. Nanocomposite hydrogel systems or magnetic nanoparticles can be considered as a way to deliver the medicines more efficiently, more effectively. Now, for example, a smart drug, let's take a look at here, that antibody and toxin. So toxin is a protein in nature. Now it will produce a binary complex, which is a heterocomplex of an antibody and toxin. Now, once it reaches the immunotoxin inside the cell, the antibody part will attach to the protein on the cell membrane because there's a receptor ligand interaction, and it will facilitate the endocytosis, and thereby the antibodies entered inside and causes endocytosis, and then toxin will destroy the cell. Has a potentially strong application to treat the cancer or any damaged cells, even in the accidental or traumatic conditions. Composite hydrogel system, particularly an example is thermotherapeutic process, releases drugs which are encapsulated on heating. Like we do like a hot tub PCR, you must have heard some of you. So the enzyme is encapsulated unless it reaches to a temperature of 95 degrees, enzyme does not become active. Similarly here, the drugs are released in an encapsulated form, and upon heating, it gets activated. And for example, gold nanoshells or gold nanoparticles can be used. Ideal wavelength of light can be infrared 800 to 1200 nanometer, where their heating would result into the inert form or inactive form converting into the active form and helps the system to work. Another drug delivery mechanism, nanomaterial, would be magnetic nanoparticles. So drugs are to be bound with the magnetic nanoparticles. So the nanoparticle can be chemical or similarly chemical composites. Similarly, it can be magnetic composites also. Those will carry the drugs to the malignant site in the cancer patient with the magnetic fields, and that would give, because the cancerous cell and the normal cell will have a different potential, magnetic potential, and thereby the specificity can be improved, and the drug will be released by the enzymatic activity. So a picture shown is here indicating that a tissue which will be attacking through the magnet containing the nanoparticle, which goes directly into the blood vessel, for example, or the targeted another tissue, and is able to make its enzymatic action to repair the or to cause the effect of that medicine at that site. So detection of disease can also be improved, particularly detection of cancer or detection of virus. Even the COVID-like viral infection can also be very well detected efficiently with the possibly with the nanoparticle. But we do not have right now a test. If somebody immediately would put a question that can the COVID-19 be detected with the nanomaterial, answer is theoretically yes, but practically it is not available at this moment. So popular nanomaterial, carbon nanotubes, or the nanodots, which has been very popularly made in last, let's say 25-30 years. A huge nanodot reports on the research has been published from the various different popular laboratories. And the nanowires can also be used for the detection of cancer, particularly the transformed cells or the immortal cells and the viruses. Gene detection can also be effectively done with the help of silicon nanowire. So wherever the genetic factors are invoked in the conditions, there the silicon nanowire have a profound applications in order to target the same. Now here is an example of how the cancer and virus detection can also be achieved. For example, the nanotube is covered with a monoclonal antibody. Now you can envisage there are monoclonal antibodies against COVID-19, and there are monoclonal antibodies also against a specific type of cancers too. So though are commercially available, you can simply make a heterocomposite of nano material with the monoclonal antibody. For example, here antibodies for growth factor, human growth factor, HGF receptor, which are commonly found in the cancerous cell. This is a more general example, but you can have monoclonal antibody against S protein of COVID-19 for detection of COVID-19. And that would current increases the major. You can also use a silicon nanowire like that carbon nanotubes, similar to the nanotubes. Antibodies then are attached to those silicon nanowires, and that would change in the current can be measured, and it can be applied to the cancer cell detection as well as the various virus detection. All you need to have a specific marker which can be tagged with that of the nanomaterial, whether it is a nanotube, whether it is a nanowire or nanomaterial, any other nanomaterial, so that it would be effectively identifies the material carefully infection. Now, gold nanoparticles or the gold nanodots have also been used. These are also the same application as we talked in the previous case, like the silicon nano wires or the nanotubes. Antibodies are prerequisite in this case, which are attached to the nanoparticle, and nanoparticles are carried by the antigen-antibody reaction. Basically, nanoparticles antibodies complex binds to the cancer cell, and here in the figure, color reflects when the light is hit by the particle. So shape and sizes would again be very important. That would affect the quality of the color representation. As I already told you, size does matter in the beginning and the shape does matter for its physical properties also. Now, silicon nanowire can be used to detect a gene. So it can detect the specific gene or the specific allele, nucleic acids which are attached to the nanowire. So you have an nucleic acid interaction, because there are 3 types of interactions in the molecular level, like DNA protein interaction, RNA protein interaction, and protein protein interaction. So the same thing is exploited with the use of silicon nanowire. Nucleic acids which are attached to the nanowire, specific sequences can be created, so you can design these oligonucleotides or shorter stretches of oligonucleotides which are tagged with that of the nanowires, and that act as a sensor. So it's basically the exploitation of perfect match mismatch technology which is used in SNP detection, and the same thing you're going to detect, which will help you identify a particular allele of a disease in a genetic disease condition is there in the patient or not there in the patient. So that would be a very effective diagnosis and very fast, rapid diagnosis. Sensor capable of differentiating mutated and a non-mutated, that is a wild type gene. That's what I say. Mutated has a mutation point, and then if you have oligo tag, which is a wild type, so it would result a perfect, a non-perfect match. That is a mismatch, and that would have a different outcome. Then if you have a perfect match, then if the oligo was matching with the complementary to the wild type, it would bind with a high efficiency and the kinetics would differentiate itself. So you can conduct either a PCR or you can do it without PCR also. Now, imaging technology, where Dr. Roy Chaudhary works also, typically normally you have X-ray, MRI, fluoroscopy these days, CAT scans, CT scans, but they have large number of limitations particularly, because you can get to see the things, but you don't really always able to pinpoint a diagnosis. For example, HRCT score, it could be due to virus, it could be due to some kind of chemical response, it could be due to bacterial proliferation in the chest, and referring to the COVID-19 situation. But that is a limitation. And that's why often large number of deaths are due to inefficient diagnosis. Just knowing the HRCT score does not conclude whether it is a bacterial infection, whether it is a fungal infection, whether it is a post cytokine storm, that is a post immunological complication resulting into the systemic failure in that particular patient. So there are such large number of limitations are available, and therefore it is a very difficult to track the imaging outcome as much as. But if you tag the same thing with the nanomaterial, then possibly that virus specific, allergen specific, microbe specific, you would be able to improve the quality of diagnosis through that imaging technology, or even the aberrant cells. If it is about a cancer or if it is about some trauma that causes the distortion or anything in the cell. So again, the applications probably in imaging use of quantum dots as labels, which are dots are attached to the basically the particles and molecules before the injection. Fluoroscopy can also be used to track the movement. So the colors, nano dots with the different colors, and those can be imaged because their progress, their movement with a differential coloration would very be easily detectable. So tracking the blood flow, if you know, like there are like a 2D, 3D, and 4D ultrasonography. Particularly, the 3D and 4D are the very close to able to differentiate the blood flow from any organ of the human. But 2D will not give you that kind of mobility. 3D can do, 4D will do the best. So you can use the same thing, tag the proteins of the cells with a gold nanoparticle, and then view the progress of angiogenesis. Important in the case of cancer detection by means of imaging. Cancer imaging can also be injection of a gold nanoparticle into a localized around the tumor, and CT scan will be able to show you where exactly the cancerous region is located. My lab basically works with the medicinal plants with its ability to understand the antimicrobial feature and the anti-cancerous feature. And one of the ways we work is synthesizing the silver nanoparticles from the wild medicinal plants and make use of the same for the studying other aspects of antimicrobial, antibacterial particularly, and the anti-cancerous potential. Now, in the antibacterial, we do not work in the laboratory strains. We basically work with the clinical isolates, which are at least multiple drug resistant. That is our minimum requirement. We do not work with the sessile or non-resistant strains of microorganisms, which is commonly done by the n number of laboratories around the country, but we don't. Also, we don't randomly use any MDR. We use the MDRs, which also have a high minimum inhibitory concentrations to a commonly applied antibiotic for that particular organism. And we specifically work with gram-negative at this moment. So this is one of the very commonly found medicinal plant, Tridex procundum. Hindi में उसे जखम जोड़ी बोलते हैं. That you would see it. Leaves are very commonly used. You just macerate leaves by hand also and apply it directly onto the wound. So it's not just a clotting, but more than clotting, it helps healing without leaving the scar behind. So one of the students had started working on the Tridex procumbens nanoparticle. Before that, she started with the use of chemical, that is a silver nanoparticle, which is a standard one. So with 20 millimolar sodium citrate and silver nitrate was mixed, and at 80 degrees Celsius, she could get a very good amount of nanoparticle. And all the features are studied which are required, that is UV visible spectroscopy, transmission electron microscopy, zeta potential, XRD, then Fourier transformation, infrared spectroscopy. All these interventions we study in order to understand the quality, monodispersion, the sizing, its structure, shape of the nanoparticle, and biofunctionalization aspects of the Tridex nanoparticle were to be done with the asparagine and arginine, which are very commonly used as a doping agents, particularly. So that we wanted to do in two ways, with the use of Tridex extract as well as with this asparagine and arginine as a doping agent to see what happens. We also study the prolonged storage, and I'm sure we have the functional nanoparticles made from this over 4 years, although it states here 2 years, but they are functional even after 4 years. So here is an example that the chemically synthesized nanoparticle generally gave us a spherical 23 nanometer average, while the Tridex mediated nanoparticles were again ranging between 11 to 45 with an average of 22 nanometers. So more or less same and more spherical. Monodispersion was very normally found. Now the bacteria used were like Escherichia coli, Shigella, which is a bacillary dysentery causing Aeromonas respiratory pathogen, and Candida tropicalis, which is a fungus known to have a lot of infections, particularly in the urinogenital tract. So these are the examples, and we could find that both the effect is similar, that even if you store it for a longer period of time, almost 4 years, we do not lose the activity. Now, anti-cancerous properties of these nanoparticles primarily have been studied using the human lung carcinoma cell, that is A549. As you could see, there are 3 colors: the blue color, the green color, and the cyan color. Now, in one case, basically the silver nanoparticles are the blue color, cyan color are the Tridax nanoparticle, and Tridax extract itself is also used, whether it has anti-cancerous activity. And it is very visible that at 100 micromolar concentration itself, it was giving lesser than 50% survival. So, and the standard compound was Fisetin, which required 600 micromolar, and our compound was able to, our nanoparticles were able to exhibit the effect, very low concentration, 100 micromolar. In current further studies, we have seen even at 20 micromolar, we're able to get to see if you increase the surface area, the effects are even more pronounced with the lower doses of nanoparticles. Now, the cytotoxicity was again studied by silver nanoparticle, Tridax nanoparticle, Tridax extract. Then the biofunctionalized nanoparticles with asparagine and arginine. And it is considered consistent that the biofunctionalization did not make a miracle. However, the plain nanoparticle of a Tridax extract are superior consistently, and their activity with 400 macromolar and further there's no change, meaning severely they bring the inactivation of the cells. Now, the silver nanoparticles, then as you could see, the growth is very strongly affected. So we conducted the HRLCMS of the nanoparticles prepared from two, that is a crude extract, as well as the crude extract was passed from the columns and eluates were tested. The eluates giving the activity were then further used for the HPLC. Then the fractions of HPLC giving the activity were used to resynthesize a nanoparticle and then measure the HRLCMS profile of these things. So we could see that the oligopeptides and certain chemicals can be commonly found both in the crude extract and then again into the nanoparticles made from the HPLC active functional fraction of HPLC. Another plant that we work is a Solanum xanthocarpon. Again, it is a sort of found on an arid land, and you must have noticed it at a different location. I have shown you the pictures for the same purpose. So the nanoparticles here too were around 22.5 nanometer average, which was closely close to the silver nanoparticles synthesized with chemical, that is a 23, again spherical monodispersion. And the activities were tested against not just those 4 bacteria, but more of the MDR. All bacteria mentioned at the clinical and MDR. E. coli, Shigella, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is one of the superbugs in India. Aeromonas, Citrobacter, Enterobacter is another member of the escape family, Proteus mirabilis, and Candida tropicalis. None of these bacteria were inhibited with the whole fruit extract. However, all of the bacteria except Proteus mirabilis got killed very effectively when the nanoparticle from the whole fruit extract was prepared. Very simple, very simple. The extract per se did not have any activity. However, the nanoparticles, silver nanoparticles made with the extract were effective against E. coli, Shigella, Pseudomonas aeruginosa, Citrobacter, and Enterobacter. It was even much more effective, at least twice the effective in the case of Candida, because Candida had exhibited activity both in the whole fruit extract as well as the nanoparticle. But the nanoparticle activity is way superior to the extract mediator. So possibly there are 2 different compounds or isolation of a particular compound that is with doping with the nanoparticle gives a better activity. So there were almost 21 different compounds which were present in the nanoparticle produced from the crude extract of the whole fruit. And then we process the same for the HRLCMS, and here are the example again: Phonisopril, clomipramine, and tripeptide, that is a glycine, then glycine, glutamine, glycine, and alanine was also found to be active. Now the same was processed through the column. The active elevate, that means antimicrobial activity showing elevate, was processed further for HPLC, and the active fraction of HPLC that is used to prepare the nanoparticle, and the nanoparticle of crude extract and the nanoparticle made from the fraction of HPLC are then combined, compared. And here you could see that again, the oligopeptides and the pyridoxine was commonly found, hexadeclamine. And some of these compounds have been known, written and proven to be antimicrobial also. The third plant that we work is also Argemone mexicana, which is again the, by name Mexicana. It was initially found in Mexico, but it is found in all temperate regions around the globe. Here are a few articles that we have published in this area. And I thank you for your kind attention, and I'll be happy to address the questions if you have any.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, with the interaction session, I will read out the question, sir, if you permit me.
Please.
So the first question is, sir, can composite materials be used for drug delivery? This is from Nitin, Mr. Nitin.
Yeah, basically, what do you make the composite with? Is it a metal composite? I have shown you the antibody and the protein toxin composite. That can also be used. So that in itself is an example that biological composites can be very well applied into the medical field. Even a magnetic nanoparticle, that is a composite, that can also be used. So yes, there are, but it all depends on the size and the delivery efficiency of the particular that composite material. Yes.
So the next is it is a query from Haswant Ranjan Bora. He is very interested in this topic and he asks for the presentation, today's presentation, sir.
That's not a question.
Okay, moving to the next. It is from Raina Sheikh. Have there been any ethical complications considered with respect to the idea of inserting nanorobots in the human body?
Absolutely. None of the medical application can be considered without passing through the ethical review board. Even if you want to perform the studies as a part of research, your proposal has to be approved by the institutional ethical review board. So of course, when we talk about an application, real application, it has already been approved by the ethical process, without which it will not be applied. Certainly.
Next is from Anindita Deka. She says, I would like to know the status of use of nanotechnology in treating behavioral disorders and how common is this in India?
Behavioral disorders are is a very interesting question, in fact. But I think the world is there are like a staggered approaches. So the cancer, particularly, or the lifestyle diseases, are on the top hit of the world spending. If you look at, however, the behavioral diseases are lagging very much, especially from the world level fundings, if you do consider. So I think under the staggered, it's an enticing and interesting idea. But unless we know, behavioral orders are largely to do with the endocrinological disturbances also. And sometimes it's not always endocrinological, sometimes it's a different component. If the clear-cut condition and it's a cellular molecular component is known, at this moment it would be only an interesting idea, but I don't think we can comment more than this.
Next is, it is from Dr. Piyush Mishra, sir. His question is, sir, whether nanomedicines for diabetes are available in India. If so, what are those?
Insulin, I already said, but India, I don't know about India does it or not, but insulin delivery is in the line. So just hold on, just hold on. Insulin is a human growth factor receptor. Insulin are the examples, and insulin is the telltale component of diabetes treatment.
Next is, would the application of nanotechnology in diagnosis and medication would be affordable to common man, for common man?
That's a very typical Indian Bengali question. It's true that we want everything, but at the free of cost. I don't know, because it is not at application level. So the cost certainly in the beginning might not be the same, but the more the option, as you know, the mobile, when it came in 97 in India, it was like a 9 rupees, 18 rupees per minute. Now it is less than one paisa per second, right? Less than half a rupee, like, you know, it's so cheap. So it depends, like, to the beginning stage, everything is going to be expensive. But the more the application, more the demand it comes, the more possibilities will come up, and possibly it will be affordable to every individual. You're mute, Samuel, sir.
Thank you, sir. So next question is from Pratap, Mr. Pratap. Would nanoparticles treatment of cancer be equally efficient with first generation, second generation anti-cancer drugs?
If you're referring the generations of the drug, basically that talks about the second generation works either with the enhanced spectrum, or it is directly towards the more directed toward the drug resistant clones. So obviously that is what we say. But of course, if it is a molecular changes there in the cancerous cell, we cannot generalize a statement that it would be second generation would be more effective than the first generation. Possibly, it all depends on what is that material as a medical material that is being sent along with the nanoparticle. If that in itself has high efficacy, certainly regardless of a first generation or the second generation, it would. So ultimately, it depends on the mode of action and the efficacy of that medicine, not the nanoparticle person. Nanoparticle is a way.
Thank you, sir. Next is from Madhubanti Das. The question is, the polymeric nanoparticles possesses limited drug loading capacity, and on repeated administration, toxic metabolites may be formed during the biotransformation of polymeric carriers. Sir, my question is, how can we minimize the systemic toxicity level?
Well, that is, I initially also said that there are a lot of promising applications for the nanomaterials, nanoparticles. However, it's like every other technology, it also has the limitations and the consequences and the concerns to cross upon. So first of all, poly type of nanoparticle are not very friendly to be used in the medical applications. It has to be the mono type of things, because poly is going to be complicated in order to discern how it has helped or what kind of side effect it has brought. Which of those polymeric shape or polymeric size wise nanoparticles are imparting all those difficulties will be there. Therefore, First of all, that is not a very good choice. And certainly, if there is going to be side effects or the toxicity due to the differential sizes, differential shapes of the nanoparticle itself will enhance. But automatically, there are certain issues with the toxicity of nanomaterials, and that people around the globe are working on it, how to minimize. Over a period of time, we should get to see some kind of a solutions also. Yes.
Next is Dr. Manas. How can I deliver an anti-epileptic drug in the brain?
Anti-epileptic drug into the brain. So again, it's a targeted delivery, but the molecule that you are going to send should be having the ability to cross the blood-brain barrier. Okay, so the composition that one has to make should be able to cross the blood-brain barrier. Then and then only you have an access to the central nervous system. If that kind of a complex is made, then it is possible to go through. At the present moment, epileptic drug, as you know very well, they are sent through the circulatory system. Although we know that hardly there is a little blood at all that goes into, but that is the chemical compound that crosses the blood-brain barrier, which goes. Same phenomena should also be taken into consideration along with the nanoparticle. If that material is able to cross the blood-brain barrier, you can directly think about the providing it to the closmost site or through the blood, as presently the anti-epileptic drugs are given. That both options are open for that.
So there are some repetitions in questions. So I am.
You can trim them. You can trim them. Yeah.
So next is what are the common methods of green nanoparticle synthesis? Also, sir, how to choose which nanoparticle, gold or silver, to select for any bioassay, for an bioassay?
That's very interesting because there are a large number of compounds available. One can go with titanium, one can go with selenium, one can go with silver. Almost every heavy metal element can be considered as an option. But as a literature you go by, the gold and the silver have been more effective. And the history goes back with a very old phenomena in microbiology, particularly called oligodynamic action. You might be knowing, and everybody must have heard in the global culture also, the water that is kept almost 18 to 24 hours in a copper vessel has a lot of benefits over the water kept in the stainless steel or any other metal. You cannot keep that in the pital because pital mein rakhoge, so it will have a lot of other chemicals which will be non-friendly for your digestive system. Conversely, the taste might change of the water that is kept 24 hours old in the copper vessel. However, it has a large number of benefits, and that's what happens. Basically, copper oxide that is going to produce the copper nanoparticle, and they basically are going to have the health benefits. So copper has very well known. Why copper? Why not gold? Why not silver? Because everybody could not afford to. But the same effect can be magnified. The oligodynamic action effect can be magnified if you keep the water in the gold glass or the silver glass. Not everybody can afford. But the copper, majority of the people, that has been shown. So gold and silver nanoparticles approach is perfectly accepted. That is because of their high efficacy. But again, it depends on which of the biological activity you are likely to. If you're talking about rectifying certain reproductive aspect, then selenium probably will work better than the gold or the silver can make a miracle. It depends. Or a digestive system, silver nanoparticle might make a difference more effective than the other. So you'll have to read through the literature in order to find out the better suitable thing. About a green synthesis approach, it is basically the using less of the hazardous chemical. so that those are ergonomic, that is environment friendly, as well as a laboratory. Other complications are not to be introduced, which is what is called the green chemistry or green synthesis approach. So you could use the plants, you could use the biological, other systems also, animals, insects, the microbes, etc., as a way of synthesizing the nanoparticles with the use of those total extract or a particular extract. Let's say in the plant or animal, you can have a different part of the biological organism, and then you can go for the synthesis. But which of these metal to be used, you'll have to follow some literature, and depending on the site of the action or the kind of medical condition, you'll have to choose that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, I think we have already covered all the questions. There are some one or two questions which are similar. So I would like to request the participants, if you have any query, then if our honorable resource person, sir, allows, you can contact
Please go
him
ahead, no problem.
in his personal email ID. So through email, you can inquire your queries. So with that, I would like to thank our resource person, sir, for this interesting deliberation. And thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your interaction also.
My pleasure.
Dr. Samuel, I just interrupt that
Yes,
the
sir. Yes,
feedback link is given in the chat box. All the participants are requested to kindly fill up their feedback link. Thank you.
Thank you, Jogan sir. Thank you, Samuel sir. Thank you, Principal sir. Thank you, Dr. Chaudhary. Thank you, Dr. Nandi.
Thank you, sir. So we have next in our program the speech from the President Zoological Society of Assam, our Priyabrata Laukar sir. So I would request Priyabrata Laukar sir to speak a few words on the webinar. Over to you, sir. Priyabrata sir.
Thank you, Sheikh. Am I audible to you?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. Respected Principal of BN College, Dhubri, Coordinator Sheikh, and our most beloved Professor Kharat, who has given a very wonderful latest development talk on nano biotechnology. It is a higher research stage, and by your talk, so simplified, we have narrated that our research scholars will be inspired to go on this topic. They may take up in future biotechnology. Now, one thing I want to ask you is not a question exactly. Can this nanoparticle develop, nanobiology particle so develop, boost us in our body so that our immune system boosted up and prevent this pandemic era? Instead of taking vaccine, can this nanobiotechnology or nanoparticle, if injected to our blood, is there any possibility in future? That is one of the questions. Anyway, that you please say it or you answer it in your talk already. Anyway, I am really grateful to know more about this nanobiotechnology. I'm learning, still learning what nanotechnology is, and I'm really astonished to learn that nanobiotechnology is developed so much that our university can start now on this topic, on this research plan. Anyway, thank you very much for being with us in our amongst the Zoology Society, among the leading college. BN College of the southern part is a leading college in Lower Assam division, Lower Assam area, and they have taken up a very recent development subject of nanobiotechnology. I am thankful to all of you, our Professor Jugan Kolita, who is General Secretary, our working President Dr. Barendra Kumar Das, and many of our important persons who are really doing work on the development of Zoology Society of Assam. Thank you very much. Thank you once again. Thank you, Kara.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I
Thank you,
think
sir.
if we have a immunomodulator, sir, if I may, if we have a immunomodulator in a favorable manner, then nanoparticle may help its entry and a targeted action in a expedited manner. But per se, nanoparticle won't be solitarily helping immunity to boost because they are not necessarily an immunity booster. They are the carriers. In that sense, if they are being tagged with those small sized immunomodulator, which would be specifically improving particular condition specific immunity, that would be the futuristic approach. But that currently.
Yeah. That's what in the future it may happen. In
Yes.
future it may happen. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Next, I would request Dr. Balendra Kumar Das, sir, working president of JDSA, to share his view on this program. Over to you, Balendra, sir.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, sir.
It's a great pleasure and privilege once again for me to join in this very up-to-date topic of nanotechnology and its medical application. Respected President of ZSA, Priyabrat Lohakar, respected Principal of BN College, Dr. Chakraborty, today's Center of Attraction, Professor Arun S. Kharat, and presently the HOD of Zoology and the Secretary of Zoological Society of Assam, Professor ever energetic Professor Jogen Chandra Kolita, the faculty members of BN College, participants from different parts who are having interest in this up-to-date subject. We are very thankful to you, sir. You have delivered a very, very important topic in a very lucid way. I hope that it will penetrate in the mind of the young generation and it will percolate to their thinking, and that will lead for research foundation in their mind. As our president has said it, yes, recently I have gone through for this nanotechnology and I have found 2-3 things. That nanotechnology has helped in delivering drugs, heat, light, etc. in a particular cancer cells and without damaging the good cells. So it's a great development of nanotechnology which has helped the cancer patient, even if they have developed nano drugs like Abraxane, which is used in breast cancer. And we're very happy during these pandemic days. Nanotechnology has helped us to deliver vaccine antigens in human body. So these are the informations which are very much helping the entire human race. And we can think in the coming days, this nanotechnology in medical science especially will heal the world. With these few words, I, on behalf of Zoological Society of Assam, thank you all for participations and especially Professor Kharat for his very valuable and up-to-date lecture, which has given the opening to our brain for thinking further and taking nanotechnology as a subject in research. And our young generation, we know there is no dearth of talent in Assam or in Northeastern India. They will be attracted for developing their own avenues of research in this line. Thank you very much, and wish you all that this dark cloud of pandemic will be over and we'll have very recently we'll see silver lining on the dark clouds. Thank you very much and all the best to all of you. And
Thank you, sir.
before ending, I would like to thank Dr. Samuel Sheikh for running this so nicely. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So next, now I would request Professor Jogen Chandra Kolita, sir, Head Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, and the General Secretary of Zoological Society, Assam, to deliver a few words on this event. Sir, please.
Okay, namaskar everyone. I am really very delighted to hear Dr. Arpita Roy Choudhury, as well as our most beloved, my young friend, very serious scientist of India, Arun Khara. I was waiting, rather maybe almost 1 year, to bring Professor Arun Khara digitally to our platform in a webinar. I was trying at that same time when Dr. discussing about holding one international webinar. Immediately I remembered that I talked to Arun Khara, he might agree. And when I contacted him, said, okay, give me a few days. That way it happened. Today I'm really very glad to connect two geniuses of India. One is Dr. Arpita Chakraborty, now in Germany, Professor Arun Khara in a very important university of the world, JNU. I know his work. What Arun has been doing is fantastic. And all participants are so happy. Lot more, many appreciation notes in the chat box. And it is very high standard, but very simple. He explained everything to the point, to the understanding of our young friends, many postgraduate students, many research scholars, many friends from different parts of India. And it's really a very good composition that all my young friends of India, Arpita Roy Choudhury from Germany, and many others from other part of the country, we are discussing a very important agenda, that is nanobiotechnology and its medical application. We could know many things today. So many things our young generation could know, including me. I was learning so many things, listening to both of them. I'm really happy to tell Professor Arun Khara that BN College is one of the very important colleges in India. It has strategic location, as Dr. Dhruva Chakraborty rightly said in the beginning, that we are very close to the international border and also very close to the Indian mainstream. And in there, very young and dynamic faculties are there. They have all the programs. If you talk about Star College, if you talk about DBT Hub, if you talk about vocational program and what not, it is because of the dynamic nature of the faculty members under the leadership of a dynamic principal and also the governing body. So my aim was not just to listen to Professor Arun Khara for 1 hour only, or to listen to Dr. Arpita Roy Choudhury for a few minutes. My aim is different. What I plan that this BN College, the great college in Assam, we need to connect Professor Khara for our future. If Professor Khara and your college can collaborate in the research field, he was talking about medicinal plants. We are in a biodiversity hotspot with high amount of endemicity. So we have botany department, we have zoology department, we have chemistry department, physics department, all sciences together, including computer science. So what I thought that this college can connect to JNU, especially to Professor Arun Khara, and also together with Professor Arpita Roy Choudhury from Germany. And if we are together, there is our stand. And I am sure Dr. Dhruva Chakraborty will lead this particular approach. And Professor Arun Khara from Guwahati University, I am telling you that we are so pleased you visited my university, Guwahati University. This is one of the oldest and premier institute of higher education in this part of India, but we need your help. We want you to develop this particular northeastern region of India. I know that you are a product of IISc and you have lots of international exposure, like Dr. Arpita Roy Choudhury. So I hope that this connection will be continued with the help of all in BN College, we all in ZSA, our most respected president, Priyabrata Lokar sir, is so dynamic. He is a very senior member, but very dynamic, like our very dynamic working president, Dr. Balendra Kumar Das, originally a professor of zoology, and now he is the administrator, the academic director administration of a university in Meghalaya. So let us join our hands together. And with this, I do not want to linger more. I congratulate each and every one of BN College Dhubri, right from the principal to all. And I congratulate Professor Arun Khere for outstanding work in India he has been doing. And Dr. Peter Roy Choudhury, please bless us from Germany, because as you know, German is very important in science and technology development. And all my esteemed participant friends, thank you so much. Namaskar from Guwahati University. Thanks.
Thank you very much for all the good words, and we'll continue our interactions, certainly.
Thank you, Jogen Kolita sir, for your compliments and the inspiration, and also the aspiration you give from us. We will surely, sir, will be guided by you, and we'll go forward, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Samuel, one thing, Samuel.
Right, sir. You want to?
For all the participants who are writing in the chat box that to share the feedback link, the feedback link has already been shared 3 to 4 times. But if you have missed that, then it will be there in the college website also. So you please visit the college website and give the feedback. In case of any problem, just send an email. We will look into it. Thank you. And thank you, Jogen Kolita sir, for your appreciative words. We hope that we will live up to your expectations under your guidance. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we are at the end of this program. Now, I would request Pritika Nandi madam to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, madam. Pritika madam. Can you hear?
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you are audible.
I feel honored and privileged having an opportunity to offer vote of thanks on this webinar. First of all, I would like to express my sincere thanks to our resource person, Professor Arun S. Kharat, who spares the time from his busy schedule to grace the webinar with his valuable speech. Thank you so much, sir. I would further extend a hearty thanks to the inaugurator of today's webinar, Dr. Arpita Roy Choudhury ma'am, for gracing the webinar with her presence. I would like to thank the entire family of the Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, and Zoological Society of Assam, ZSA, especially Professor Jogen Chandra Kolita, Head of the Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, and General Secretary of ZSA, Priyabrata Lokar, President, ZSA, Dr. Balendra Kumar Das, Working President of ZSA. I take this opportunity to specially express my deep regards and gratitude to Dr. Dhruva Chakraborty, Principal, BN College Dhubri, for always encouraging and providing opportunities for such webinars. My deep sense of appreciation and thanks to all the faculty participants from BN College and other institutions, research scholars from different institutions, and students who attended the webinar with great enthusiasm and make it a successful event. My sincere gratitude also goes to the organizing committee, Dr. Sushmita Sengupta, Coordinator, IQAC BN College, Dr. Samuel Sheikh, Moderator of today's webinar, and GTech for their technical support. Once again, I thank you all for being with us. Thank you so much. Over to you, Samuel, sir.
Thank you, madam. So now with the permission, we may declare the event is over, sir. Principal
Oh,
sir.
yes, yes, please.
Okay. So the meeting is over. Thank you. Thank you. all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Thank
Thank
night.
you. Thank you, Bharat sir. Thank you, Arpita madam.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jabir sir.
Thank you.
Sir.
Thank
And
you.
I'll wait for
Thank you,
Sai.
Kochra sir.
Thank you, everyone. And Professor Dhruva, Principal Dhruva Chakraborty, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, nice meeting you all. And I was a little bit late because, and at the end, but last but not the least, I'm very thankful to Arpita Rai Chaudhuri, who has joined from Germany.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Professor Arpita Rai Chaudhuri. Thank you. Thanks to all.
Thank you so much also.
Thank you.